and welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Mommy Budgets and I am Amanda, and as you can see I am sitting in my cozy chair. So for those that are new, that means it's time for some cozy chair conversation. And those that are returning, then you already know what's going on. So basically, if you are new to this channel, then welcome. I hope that you stick around and like these videos and also subscribe to the channel. It's entitled Dr. Mommy Budgets. Therefore, we are talking about a lot of information that pertains to budgeting, finances, paying off debt, and everything in between. But basically, when I sit in my cozy chair, I get to have a conversation about anything I want to have a conversation about. So today we are actually going to be talking about another finance topic. So, as some of you know, this is where I come when I get off of work just to chill and kind of talk to you guys about information that, I've either thought about or I've seen other information about. I've done some research about, other YouTubers are talking about. So, yeah, today's topic is going to be, I have my little cheat sheet here. How do you calculate your emergency fund? I will repeat. How do you calculate your emergency fund? So let's get into it. I know that most of your financial gurus and most people that are here on YouTube in the finance committee are always harping on how important it is to have an emergency fund. And while I do agree with that concept, I don't particularly agree on if they are trying to tell you what should be in your emergency fund, how much money you should have in your emergency fund, what items are you allocating the funds for, the amount of months that you should save for. All of that I personally believe is personal to you. But I have been looking at other people's emergency fund videos lately, and to my surprise, actually, they have information that's kind of across the board. I've actually taken notes from about 10 or 11 different YouTubers who have given their take on emergency funds. But I am going to give you some of their suggestions. Like this one YouTuber said that your emergency fund should be 6 to 12 months of your four walls or either your basic needs. So basically your rent or your mortgage, your transportation, your utilities, and your food. Those four items, okay? Then there was another YouTuber I was listening to, and that YouTuber said that you should start off by having at least $1,000 in that emergency fund. That's your start off emergency fund, but they recommend for your full emergency fund that you have 6 to 12 months. Then another YouTuber, pretty much along the same lines, have a starter emergency fund of $1,000. I think a lot of them is getting this information from Dave Ramsey, because he suggests that you just have one emergency fund of, well, in the beginning, one emergency fund of $1,000. Then you pay off all your debt, and then you create a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses. So yeah, so this YouTuber also said the goal should be 3 to 6 months, and the items that they say should be in your emergency fund should be or you should be saving up for your expenses if there is a job loss or a major change in finances, or if there's a recession or something like that. Then another YouTuber said at least you need to have a year amount of emergency money set aside for some of the same reasons. For financial emergencies, you lose a job, there's a major repair that you need to do at your home. And then I've also already talked to you about Dave Ramsey and what his suggestions are. Now, here's another YouTuber that I thought was this information was a little interesting. I hadn't really thought about this, and actually, I went to several channels that kind of talked about this information, and they were talking about having 3 to 4 different emergency funds, and that kind of piqued my curiosity. Basically, they were saying you should have, which makes a lot of sense, you should have a cash fund, meaning that you should have a certain amount of money in your home just in case you cannot get to the bank, or you don't have access to friends and family, you don't have access to credit cards or other forms of funds. So a cash reserve, and their recommendation was like $1,000. So I guess with that you can, kind of come up with whatever amount you think you need for your household. That's why we call this personal finances. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. But the 4 that they talked about was cash funds. They also mentioned having money at a local bank. So that's your second emergency fund. And the third one would be more of a long-term emergency fund that you could have at perhaps like an online bank or somewhere that you can't get to really quickly. And then also the fourth one was friends and family. And I never thought about that, using, people, human beings, as an emergency fund. But for me, I probably wouldn't really do that unless these are people that are in my household, or my significant other, those close family. But like distant family and friends, wouldn't do that. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Let's see what else we had. Yeah, we had another YouTuber that said to have like 3 different emergency funds, pretty much along the same lines: a cash reserve, and one at a local bank, and then credit cards as the third option. Then there were some YouTubers that even said that they hate emergency funds, that you shouldn't even have emergency funds, that you should invest most of your monies in stocks or real estate, or things like that, and maybe have just like a few pennies, maybe like $500 to $1,000 cash in a bank. So, it was just really interesting to see and hear the different perspectives of what people were saying as it relates um, to emergency funds. And I like doing things like this, to actually go out and listen to what others have to say, so that I will not always have that tunnel vision of thinking that my way is the highway and there's no other way to do things. And actually also, just by listening to others, I could also see how I could utilize some of their strategies and kind of intertwine them into what I already got going on. Because actually, those people who were talking about the different emergency funds, or having several emergency funds, I am actually doing the majority of those things, other than the credit cards. I do not have credit cards, and that's just my personal preference. A lot of people operate on credit cards. I'm not here to say how anybody need to actually operate with their finances. I am just here to provide my perspective as it relates to my experiences. So yeah, but the cash reserve I'm actually doing, having monies at a local bank and then having monies at an online bank. I already got all that covered. So actually, this was sort of like a checks and balance for myself, and I'm actually kind of doing a little bit of what the majority of the finance committee is saying to do as it relates to have an emergency fund and how you actually are going to calculate the emergency fund. And one thing that I do see that a lot of the financial gurus or people in the finance community have in common is that they do stress that you need to have an emergency fund. So that is a priority. So I'm thinking that since the majority of them are saying that, there are, like I said, there are a few that say don't have one, but if you kind of look at what they're saying, they actually do still have one. It's just that they have moved their monies into other areas, but they can still easily access that money. So but you do need one, so we do know that that is a thing. And also another commonality is that you need to make sure that it is personal and specific to you if you are single, or you and your family members if there are others that are involved in making decisions with your finances. So we do know that those are the two takeaways that I did gather as it relates to kind of doing some research and listening to videos and reading some articles on finances and emergency funds. You definitely need one because any and everything can and possibly will happen, because yes, you are going to have a refrigerator that's going to stop. You may need to have a major home repair. You may have a medical expense. Just all sorts of large items, large ticketed items that you will not actually budget for in your day-to-day budget. So basically that's what an emergency fund is there for. Now, as for me personally, when I first started my debt-free journey, which was, let's see, I really started getting really serious about paying off debt in like 2016 ish, somewhere around the middle to end of 2016. I started to think about that, like, how much money do I need to have as an emergency fund? And $1,000 was never a number for me. That was, I mean, even before I even started saving money, that was just never. I'm like, and the reason why I say that is because I have had several home repairs that were over $1,000. I've had several vehicle repairs that were over $1,000, and then on top of that, I have like a whole family here. I have 3 teenagers that live with me in my home. So yes, that $1,000 was never a number that I wanted to set as my, I guess, bottom line or lowest amount that I should have. Now, I was thinking around $3,000 for a minute, because I'm thinking about, okay, and I base these numbers off of past experience, which is pretty much all that I could really do, to be honest. And you kind of look at your life over the years and you're like, okay, I had a repair that was this amount. I had a home appliance that needed a repair that was this amount, so you kind of start to add those numbers up and calculate. And so I started to think, I'm like, yeah, $3,000 does sound like it would be a good starting point or a good place to have my emergency fund while I pay off debt. But as for me, I started to try and think about what would the largest repair cost of items that I may encounter or situations that I may encounter. And then $5,000 as an emergency fund started to look, really good to me. I'm like, yeah, if I needed to get an AC, I am not going to do a car repair that's over $5,000 because at that point I can just buy another vehicle. So I already knew that, but the AC or the heating unit or maybe the dishwasher or something like that, if those items go out, then I'm thinking about, hey, maybe it'll be around 5,000. So yeah, that is the number that I recommend as it relates to having just an emergency fund where you can kind of breathe a little bit and go on and tackle your debt. And of course, if you don't have debt, then of course this number does not apply to you. You can just save you know, until you don't want to save anymore. You know what I mean? So, yeah, but that was kind of my ballpark number, $5,000. So yeah, but I am an avid saver. I love to save money. I actually love to save money more than pay out the debt, which is what I do in certain cases. But as it relates to my debts, for those who don't know, I only have two left, which is the student loan and the mortgage. And yes, I have set some goals at the beginning of 2021, and they are some hefty goals. So yeah, we won't probably be doing too much saving around here. We're going to be paying off debt this year. So that's pretty much my take on emergency funds. So I just wanted to hop on here and kind of chit chat with you guys about emergency funds. Let me know what you think about emergency funds and how you think, what factors go into building your emergency fund for your family. So this is all I have for this video. I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, like this video, share this information with your friends and family or those who may be interested in, actually starting an emergency fund, because as we know, everyone needs an emergency fund. Even if you have large expenses or zero expenses, you still need an emergency fund. But that's all I have for this video. I am going to go and continue to recline in my cozy chair, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.